If someone had told me that my husband, the man I cooked for, cared for, protected, and sacrificed my life for, had been lying to me for years, then I would have called them cruel. But today, I know the truth. He wasn't disabled, not even close. And the reason he pretended to be was far darker and more dangerous than anything I could have imagined. Stay with me, because the moment I discovered why he did it, my entire world split in two. My name is Danielle Carter. I'm 52, and for most of my adult life, I believed I had a steady, loyal, predictable marriage. My husband, Michael, and I had been married for 28 years. We met young, fell fast, and built a quiet life in a small town outside St. Louis. But 4 years ago, everything changed. Michael had what he claimed was a devastating back injury from a construction accident. Since then, he supposedly couldn't walk without his cane. I picked up extra shifts at the school cafeteria to cover bills, medical appointments, and every little thing our life demanded. I didn't rest. He didn't work. And I kept telling myself we would get through it together. But deep down, something didn't feel right. You know that small, nagging feeling you try to push down because you want to believe the best about the people you love? That feeling became my shadow. The first sign came on a Friday evening. I had forgotten my wallet during my shift, and so came home much earlier than usual. As I entered the living room, I expected Michael to be sitting in his recliner, watching TV, just like he always did. But he wasn't there, and his cane lay across the sofa, untouched and abandoned in a way that shot a cold shiver down my spine. "Michael?" I called out. No response. The house felt empty, quiet, as though holding its breath. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Upstairs. Fast ones. My heart stuttered. Michael didn't move fast. He didn't move at all without groaning. I mounted the stairs slowly. By the time I reached the hallway, the footsteps ceased to exist. Our bedroom was empty, so was the bathroom, and the guest room. Yet the atmosphere felt disturbed, like someone had just moved through it seconds before. And then the front door opened downstairs. "Hey, honey," Michael called, in his usual weak, exhausted voice. He limped in, dragging his cane behind him, exactly like he always did. "Where were you?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He blinked at me like I had accused him of something terrible. I was napping upstairs. Why? Something in me cracked. Not enough to break me, just enough to warn me. The next week, that small crack split wide open. We were at the grocery store because I hated doing every chore alone. Michael leaned heavily on his cane, groaning with each step. People around us stared at him with sympathy, and he soaked it in like attention was medicine. I turned to grab a box of cereal, and a glass jar suddenly slipped from the top shelf, falling straight toward me. Before I could react, Michael lunged forward. Not limped, not stumbled. He lunged, strong, stable, balanced. He caught the jar mid-air. His cane clattered to the floor behind him. He froze. I froze. And then, realizing what he'd done, he bent over dramatically, grabbing his back and moaning loud enough for the other shoppers to hear. "Reflex," he groaned, performing like he was auditioning for a bad soap opera. But I didn't buy one word of that. You don't forget a terrible injury. Not for 1 second. That night, I feigned sleep while Michael remained downstairs. Around 1:30 in the morning, I heard his voice. Not the weak, tired tone that he used on me every day, but a firm, low, confident voice. "It's getting risky," he whispered. "No, she doesn't know. I told you, I have everything under control." My stomach clenched. He paused. "Yes, the payout is coming soon." Payout? For what? I slipped out of bed and moved toward the staircase, keeping low, listening. And then I heard him say it. I said I'll keep pretending until then. It's fine. She believes everything. Every single word. My hand flew to my mouth. The staircase creaked beneath my foot. and Michael went silent right away. I ran back to bed before he came upstairs. When he finally did, he groaned loudly, dragging his leg, tapping his cane for effect, slipping back into character. But I wasn't fooled anymore. My heart pounded against my ribs. I didn't feel scared yet. I felt humiliated, angry, betrayed. How long had he been lying to me? And why? The next morning, I found something that confirmed every fear I had. Michael usually slept in, so I went to the garage to get a laundry basket I had forgotten. I reached and shifted an old, dusty box that suddenly toppled over, scattering old papers and receipts in all directions on the floor. I bent down to clean the mess and froze. A phone was buried underneath everything. A second phone, black, new, unlocked. Michael wasn't supposed to have a second phone. My hands shook as I picked it up. A hidden phone meant secrets, big ones, dangerous ones. I shoved it back into the box, my heart racing. Something in me changed forever in that silent garage. My husband wasn't just pretending to be disabled. He was masquerading as an entirely different person. Whatever he was hiding, it was much darker than I had ever imagined. I didn't sleep that night that I found that second phone. I lay awake beside Michael and stared at the ceiling, listening to him fake his groans and exaggerated breaths while he shifted in pain. Every noise he emitted sounded rehearsed, like a performance he had been perfecting over the years. And the more I thought about it, everything started to rearrange in my mind. Every doctor visit where he begged me to speak for him, every time he claimed he was too weak to walk into the clinic, every chore he let me do alone, every dime from my paycheck disappearing into bills he insisted he had already paid. Once you start noticing lies, you realize they were everywhere. But that was nothing compared to what I found the next morning. He'd gone out with a friend, he said, just a quick ride to the pharmacy with our neighbor, Walter. He always had Walter drive him, and I assumed it was because of his back. Now I wasn't so sure. When they left, Michael walked slowly, leaning dramatically on his cane. But I noticed something. When he stepped outside and thought I wasn't watching, his gait shifted. He straightened slightly. He moved faster. Not normal fast, but fast enough to lift the hairs on my neck. The moment they were out of sight, I ran to the garage. I opened the box once more and took the second phone. My hands were damp with perspiration, but I had to know. I tried every code I could think of. Our anniversary, his birthday, his old phone pin. Nothing worked. But when I typed in my own birthday, the screen unlocked. That single moment hit like a punch to the chest. Why would he use my birthday? The answer hit me immediately. So he'd remember it easily. So he'd never get locked out. So he'd never slip. I opened the message thread at the top of my screen. It was with someone saved under a single letter, R. The latest was a message from last night. We're just about there. I'll keep the act up till the payout clears. My breath caught. Another message from a week earlier. She won't ask any questions. She thinks I'm helpless. My vision blurred. My hands trembled. Then another message, older. Once the money gets wired, we are done here. I'll disappear, just like we planned. Disappear? Leave me? With who? I scrolled faster, my heart racing. But before I could keep reading, I heard the garage door from the laundry room creak. Someone was coming. I shoved the phone back in its box, slammed the lid shut, and kicked it under the shelf. I ran my hands through my hair, pretending to arrange the laundry. But it wasn't Michael who walked in. It was Walter. He froze when he saw me, his eyes widening for a split second before he smiled like there was nothing wrong. Morning, Danielle. Everything all right? I tried to act casual, although my pulse was hammering. I'm just getting the laundry, I said. Where's Michael? I thought you were giving him a ride. Walter wiped sweat from his forehead. Michael asked me to drop him off downtown instead. Said he needed to pick something up. Downtown? He never went anywhere without me. Strange, I said, trying to read his face. He told me you were just driving him to the pharmacy. Walter adjusted the brim of his cap. His tell, he did it any time he was nervous. Oh, well, plans changed. Then he backed away quickly toward the door. I gotta go, Danny. Tell Mike I'll catch him later. He left in such a hurry, he didn't even close the door behind him properly. The instant he was gone, something in my chest tightened with certainty. Walter knew something. Maybe he was part of it. Maybe he wasn't. But he was lying. And Michael was lying. And that mysterious person named R was lying. And I was done being kept in the dark. I stormed back into the house, grabbed my purse, and got into my car. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped the keys. I didn't know exactly where Michael was, but I knew one thing. If he was faking his disability, if he had a secret phone, if he was planning a payout, he was meeting someone. And I was going to find out who. I drove toward downtown St. Louis and replayed years of memories, moments I had chalked up to stress, pain, hardship, love. They all felt fake now, like props, like a stage set for a show only he knew he was starring in. I reached the downtown area and slowed the car, scanning every sidewalk, every bench, every storefront window, and then I saw him, Michael, walking, gait normal, without a cane, without pain, without a limp. He moved with a confidence I hadn't seen in years. He was not alone. Standing next to him was a woman, tall, stylish, in a blazer with sunglasses. Her carriage was sharp, professional. She handed Michael something, a manila envelope, and he tucked it into his jacket. I ducked behind a parked truck, my heart pounding against my ribs so hard it hurt. They spoke for several minutes. Michael laughed, loudly, easily, like a man who didn't have a single burden in the world. And then she touched his arm, not in a romantic way, but in a way that said they were partners, equals, co-conspirators. A wave of sickness rolled through me. Who was she? What was in that envelope? What was Michael involved in, precisely? I couldn't hear their conversation from where I crouched, but I didn't need to. He was not disabled. He wasn't innocent. And he definitely wasn't the man I married. But then, something happened that made everything worse. Suddenly, Michael and the woman stopped talking with each other and faced my direction. I ducked lower behind the truck, praying he hadn't seen me. My heart was pounding so loudly I could hear blood rushing in my ears. Footsteps approached. I held my breath. They stopped only a few feet from where I was hiding. Then I heard Michael's voice, clear, strong, nothing like his sick act. "We can't leave any loose ends," he said. Loose ends? That's what he called me? The woman spoke in response, her tone calm and cold. "Then see that she remains clueless. We are too close to the finish line." Clueless? My fingers were curled so tight against the edge of that truck that my nails almost broke. And then the woman said something that sent ice shooting down my spine. If she finds out the truth before the transfer clears, both of us could go to prison. Prison? Prison? For what? Michael muttered something I couldn't hear, and then they walked off. I remained in a crouched position until my legs felt numb. When I finally stood, my head was spinning. I returned to my car and sat there shaking. My husband wasn't just pretending to be disabled. He was involved in something criminal, something that had a payout, something that risked prison. And I was the only thing standing between him and whatever life he was planning after he disappeared. And that thought, which echoed louder than anything else as I started the car, was, I wasn't safe. And I needed to find the truth before he realized I had started looking. I drove home in a daze, barely able to feel my hands on the steering wheel. Every red light, every turn, every familiar street looked different now. Like the world had tilted slightly and nothing fit exactly where it used to. How long had Michael been planning this? How long had he been faking it? I parked in our driveway, but I didn't get out right away. I sat there with the engine running, staring at the porch where I used to watch him struggle up the steps, moaning and gripping the railing like an old man in agony. All an act. I didn't cry. I thought I would, but something stronger than sadness was crawling through my chest. Survival instinct. For the first time in my life, I wasn't thinking like a wife. I was thinking like a woman who needed to protect herself from someone she once trusted with everything. I walked around the living room in circles, trying to put my thoughts in order. The woman he met, the envelope she gave him, calling about a payout, mentioning prison. None of this added up to something small. This was something big, dangerous, and I was right in the middle of it. I needed answers, real ones. The second phone, that was my first clue. I waited until I heard the familiar sound of Walter's old pickup passing by the neighborhood. Michael and Walter had a routine. After going downtown, they always stopped for lunch. Then Michael forced himself to limp dramatically into the house like he'd been sitting for too long. I had at least 30 minutes. I hurried back to the garage, grabbed the box, and took the phone inside. My fingers were shaking as I unlocked it once more, using my birthday. This message thread with R went back months. It was vague at first. She's still buying it. Keep the injury story consistent. Get her signature on everything. Signatures. My blood froze. On what? I scrolled harder, faster. Did she sign the verification of disability? The lender requires all forms be returned. Just make sure she doesn't read anything, just have her sign it. The lender? Forms? I swallowed hard, memories flashing in my mind. Papers I'd signed without reading. Forms Michael said were insurance paperwork, medical liability forms, disability renewals. I'd signed them all quickly because he acted like even holding them hurt his back. My stomach twisted so violently that I had to sit down. What did I sign? What had he convinced me to authorize? The next messages got darker. Once the settlement hits, we're out. No turning back. She won't fight it. She trusts you. You deserve this money after all these years. Settlement. It clicked. Insurance. He was faking disability for cash. But if that was all, why was he talking about disappearing? About prison? About loose ends? Unless... My breath caught in my throat. Unless the insurance scam was only part of it. I kept scrolling until I found a voicemail transcription. We need her financials, bank statements, everything. Without that, we can't proceed. My heart dropped. My bank statements? Why? The next message made the whole room feel like it tilted sideways. If she gets suspicious, we move the timeline up. You know what that means. My fingers turned ice cold. Move the timeline? What timeline? I felt like I couldn't breathe. Then came the worst one. Once the transfer clears, you will be the surviving spouse. Everything will automatically be yours. No questions asked. Surviving spouse. Surviving. I stood so fast, I knocked over a lamp. Michael was not intent on leaving me. He planned to outlive me. My pulse roared in my ears. The walls felt too close. I stumbled to the bathroom sink and splashed water on my face, trying to steady my breathing. I wasn't imagining things. I wasn't being dramatic. The words were right there in front of me, and they were clear. Michael and this woman, R, they were planning something involving a huge amount of money, something illegal, something that needed me clueless, something that made me a loose end. I stared at my reflection in the mirror. For the first time in years, I didn't see a tired wife. I saw someone in danger, someone who needed a plan. I snatched up the second phone and jammed it into my purse, then opened the front door. I didn't know exactly where I was going, but I knew staying in that house another minute was a mistake. I got into my car and drove. I saw Walter's pickup turning the corner toward our house at the end of our street. Panic surged through me. If they found out I'd seen the phone, I sped past the next block and turned down a side street, keeping my head low in case Walter saw me. I pulled into the parking lot of an old convenience store when I reached the next intersection, sat there gripping the steering wheel, trying to think. I needed someone I trusted, someone who could help me understand what I was reading. a person unrelated to Michael. My sister, Emily. She lived 2 towns over and never liked Michael much. She always said something felt off about him, but I chalked it up to personality clashes. Now I wondered if she'd sensed something I couldn't see. I drove straight to her house. When Emily opened the door, her look of surprise immediately changed into concern. "Sarah, honey, what's wrong?" I broke, not into sobs, but into shaking, violent shaking. My mind felt like someone had pulled the rug out from under it. "I need help," I whispered, "and you can't tell anyone I'm here, especially Michael." She pulled me inside straight away. I sat at her kitchen table, holding on to the second phone as if it were a live grenade. I told her everything, what I saw downtown, the envelope, the phone call, the messages, the word surviving spouse. When I spoke, Emily's face went pale. "Sarah, this isn't just insurance fraud. This is—" "I know," I whispered, my voice cracking. "I know." She took a deep breath, thinking. "We need evidence, real evidence, enough to protect you." "I have the phone," I said. "Isn't that enough?" Emily shook her head. "It's a start, but if they realize it's missing, they'll know you saw everything." The phone vibrated in my hand. A message. From R. My blood froze. "Where are you? Michael said you're not home." I stared at the screen, my heart racing. How did she know? How did Michael know that? Emily seized my wrist. "Don't answer. Don't touch anything." Instantly, another message appeared. "We need to talk now." Emily stared at me with wide, terrified eyes. "They know something," she whispered. The phone buzzed again. Then again. Then it rang. Michael's name was up in lights. My stomach flipped so hard, I thought I might pass out. Emily stared at the phone, then at me. "Sarah," she whispered, "don't answer it yet. Not yet." But the ringing didn't stop. It kept going and going, echoing through my sister's kitchen like some sort of omen, a warning that whatever Michael had planned, it wasn't finished, and he wasn't going to stop until he found me. The phone rang and rang, vibrating across my sister's table as if it were alive, like it was trying to crawl to me. I stared at Michael's name glowing on the screen, my breath locked in my chest. Emily reached over and flipped the phone face down. The buzzing stopped, but the silence that followed felt even louder. Emily leaned in. "Sarah, you're not safe with him. We have to be smart." I nodded, but my hands shook so hard the chair wobbled beneath me. Every instinct in me, even those I didn't know I possessed, was screaming to run, to hide, to disappear. But where would I go? How far could I outrun a man who had planned this for months? Emily got up, paced twice, then picked her old laptop off the counter and opened it. "We're going to search for anything that connects with that phone," she said, her fingers flying across the keyboard. But I couldn't focus on the screen. My mind replayed the message again and again. "Michael says you're not home." How did he know already? He shouldn't even be home yet. Their routine was predictable. Lunch, errands, slow drive back. It should have taken another 15 minutes at least. Unless they didn't go to lunch. Unless he went home looking for the phone. Unless he knew I found it. My stomach twisted. Emily turned the laptop toward me. "Look at this. The number that keeps texting, it's a burner service. No name, no address." "That means nothing good," I whispered. Emily nodded. "It means this woman, R, is hiding something big." The phone buzzed again. One new message. From Michael. "Sarah, answer me. Now." Something in the words set my skin crawling. They didn't sound anxious. They didn't sound affectionate. They sounded like an order, a threat wrapped up as concern. Like he already believed he was losing control of the situation. Emily snatched the phone before I could touch it and turned it off completely. "He's trying to pull you back in," she said firmly. "You need to stay here tonight. We can figure out what to do in the morning." I shook my head instantly. If I don't come home, he'll know for sure. He'll panic. God knows what he'll do. Emily knelt beside my chair and grabbed both my hands. Sarah, listen to me. You are not going back to that house tonight. But the kids. Your kids are grown. They're out of state. They're fine. You're the one in danger. I swallowed hard because she was right, but sometimes fear can make even the truth feel slippery. I never thought Michael could. Emily interrupted me softly. People are capable of things you can't imagine when money and desperation mix. She stood up and opened a cabinet. I have old folders from when I refinanced the house. Let's compare your signatures. See if he's been forging anything. I watched her spread the papers across the table. She had neat handwriting, structured, steady. I pulled out the envelope of documents Michael had made me sign over the last year. My signature looked the same, mostly, but some pages looked slightly different, slanted, sloppy, like someone was practicing, trying to impersonate me. I felt sick. Emily took one page and held it alongside the others. "These aren't yours," she said. "Look at the slant, the loop in the H. This one isn't even close." My heart pounded so hard it blurred my vision. "Emily," I whispered, "what am I looking at?" She took a deep breath. "Sarah, it looks like he forged your signature on financial documents." "What kind of documents?" She faltered. Then she said it. "Estate documents." The room spun. I clutched the edge of the table. What do you mean? Estate? Like wills?" "Worse," she said softly. "This one looks like a beneficiary reassignment." I stared at her blankly. "That means," she continued, "if something happened to you, Michael would get everything, automatically." The word surviving from the phone messages cropped up in my mind and was like a punch. Surviving spouse. Everything becomes yours, no questions asked. My throat constricted so painfully I couldn't swallow. He was preparing for my death. Not an accident, not a natural disaster, a planned event. Emily leaned over and squeezed my shoulder. "Sarah, we need to go to the police." "I have no proof," I whispered. "Just text messages and forged signatures. They'll say I'm being dramatic." Emily's voice hardened. "Then we need more evidence." My mind was racing. More evidence. Where would Michael hide something big, something illegal, something that could destroy him if found? Then I remembered. The shed. The key to the locked shed in our backyard he always kept. He said it was for tools, junk, nothing important. But he never let me in there. Not once in 20 years. If evidence existed, it was there. "I can't go home," I whispered, "but I can get into the shed." She shook her head wildly. "No, absolutely not. If he sees you—" "He won't," I said. "He thinks I'm scared. He expects me to come home eventually, not sneak around." Emily rubbed her forehead. "Okay, then you can't go alone. I'm coming with you." I stared at her. No, if something happens, I'm not letting you walk into something this dangerous alone." I knew arguing would be futile. My sister was stubborn to the core. We waited until dark so no one would see us. Emily loaned me a hoodie and a pair of sneakers. I kept the second phone in my pocket but turned it off. At 9:47 p.m., we pulled onto my street with the headlights off and parked behind the neighbor's van. The house looked calm, black, quiet. Michael's car was in the driveway. My chest tightened. He was home, probably pacing the house, probably checking every corner, probably noticing that the phone was gone. We crept around the side yard, hiding in the shadows. The shed sat at the far corner of the yard, slightly leaning to one side, as if it were tired of holding secrets. Emily whispered, "Do you know where he keeps the key?" I nodded. "In his toolbox in the garage." Emily's eyes widened. "The garage? Sarah, if he comes out." "I'll be quick," I whispered. "Just stay low and watch the back door." Emily squeezed my arm once before she slipped into position behind the trash bins. I crouched and made my way towards the garage door. Every step seemed to be louder than it should. My heart beat so fast, like a drum inside my ears. Slowly, I raised the garage door just high enough for me to crawl under. It was pitch dark inside. I moved by memory. 6 steps to the toolbox, bottom drawer, left side. My hands were shaking as I slid it open. Not there. I checked the top drawer. Nothing. My breathing quickened. Why would he move it? Unless he knew. Unless he realized the phone was gone and started hiding everything. I opened the middle drawer and froze. The key was there, along with a small black device I didn't recognize. I picked it up. It was a GPS tracker. I felt my entire body turn cold. Tracker? Why would he need a tracker? Unless he put one on my car. My pulse roared in my ears. If he tracked my car, he could already know I wasn't home. He could know I went to Emily's. He could be... A sudden sound behind me made my whole body jolt. A floorboard, inside the house. Slow, heavy, moving toward the garage door. Emily hissed my name from outside, urgent and scared. "Sarah, he's coming." A shadow moved under the door leading from the kitchen into the garage. I seized the key, shoved the tracker into my pocket without thinking, and dropped to my stomach. The kitchen door handle turned, slowly, deliberately. Michael was coming into the garage, and I was still inside. I flattened myself against the cold concrete floor, barely breathing as the kitchen door creaked open. Michael's silhouette filled the doorway. Broad shoulders, slow posture, the same fake limp he used to fool everyone. Only this time, he wasn't pretending for strangers. He was pretending for me, maybe. His cane tapped once against the floor. Tap, tap, tap. But the rhythm was wrong. Too steady, too calculated. Not the uneven, painful steps he showed in public. Michael stepped into the garage, not noticing me in the shadows beneath the workbench. He flipped the light switch. The bulb flickered but didn't turn on. He grunted in annoyance. And then I saw it. The way he moved. Smooth, effortless, no pain at all. He wasn't disabled tonight, not even a little. My heart was hammering so hard, I felt the vibrations in my ribs. Emily was crouched outside waiting for me, probably counting the seconds, probably terrified. But I couldn't move, not yet. If Michael saw me, it was over. Every instinct in my body screamed to run, but running would make noise. Running would get me killed. He stepped closer to the toolbox, closer. My breath caught. I pressed myself flatter, praying he wouldn't bend down. The cane tapped once more, the sound reverberating across the garage. Then he spoke. Not to me, to himself. "She took the damn phone," he muttered, pacing a slow circle. "Why today? Why now?" His voice didn't sound angry. It sounded calculating, like a man solving a puzzle and getting closer to the answer. "I should have hidden it better," he muttered. "Should have been smarter." He sighed, deep and frustrated. "I don't need her panicking yet." The word "yet" felt like a blade pressed against my spine. A micro-hook moment shattered through me. For suddenly, I realized something horrific. Michael didn't think I had run away. He thought I was close, and he was looking for me. I pressed both my hands over my mouth until my nails dug into my skin. His footsteps drew closer. He was now only 2 feet away from me. I could hear his breathing. Slow, controlled. "Please don't look down. Please don't look down." But then, his phone buzzed in his pocket. He stopped, pulled it out, stared at the screen. "Not now," he said, quietly, tersely. Whoever was texting him wasn't me, wasn't Emily, wasn't anyone safe. And the way he silenced the phone told me everything. It was a contact anticipating updates. Someone involved. He stepped back toward the door, then paused. "She better not make me do this sooner than planned," he muttered. My stomach twisted painfully. Sooner than expected? Planned what? The door shut behind him, and his footsteps faded through the house. I waited. 10 seconds, 20, a full minute. It wasn't until I was certain he had gone upstairs that I crawled out from under the bench like a caged animal. I ran, quietly, desperately, out of the garage and into the backyard to join Emily, who was behind the garbage cans. She grabbed my wrist. Sarah, what happened? I heard him. Are you okay? I held up the key, breathless. Let's go. Now. We sprinted across the yard, crouched low, toward the shed. The air was cold that night, and I could faintly smell the pine trees lining the fence. But all I felt was fear, crawling under my skin, squeezing my lungs. I unlocked the shed. The door creaked open, the hinges dry from years of neglect. Emily flicked on her phone flashlight. A dim beam cut through dust and darkness. Inside, the shed was initially perfectly normal. Boxes, tools, old holiday decorations, broken furniture. Nothing unusual. But Michael did not try to feign disability for 4 years to conceal Christmas ornaments. We stepped inside. Emily whispered, "Close the door quietly." I did. The darkness swallowed us until only her tiny beam lit the room. My eyes adjusted slowly. Then I saw it. A second floorboard. Not nailed, slightly raised. I pointed. Emily nodded and handed me the flashlight. She pried the board up with a rusted crowbar. Underneath was a black duffel bag. Heavy. Full. She pulled it up and set it onto the floor between us. I unzipped it with shaking hands. Inside, stacks of money, dozens of envelopes, and one small, locked metal box. My breath caught. Emily whispered, "Holy, Sarah, this is a lot of cash." But I barely heard her. Something else had grabbed my attention. My insurance folder. My insurance folder. The one I thought I had lost last year. I pulled it out slowly, my hands shaking. Inside were documents, updated forms, signatures, my name, but not my handwriting. I flipped one page, then another, then another. "Emily," I whispered, "he changed everything, every policy, every beneficiary, every emergency contact. Everything. Everything points to him." Emily's eyes widened. "Sarah, he's planning to make your death look natural. No investigation. Instant payout." My chest tightened so painfully I couldn't breathe. The shed suddenly felt too small, too dark, too suffocating. "He's going to kill me," I whispered. "He's been planning it." Those words sounded so unreal, like I was talking about another person's life, not mine. Emily grasped my shoulders. "Sarah, listen to me. We are leaving. We're taking the bag, the folder, everything, and we are going straight to the police." I shook my head violently. "No, if we leave now, he'll hear us. He'll come outside. Emily, he'll chase us." Emily swallowed hard. "Then we wait until he sleeps. We stay hidden. We don't move until it's safe." But before I could answer, a soft sound froze us both. A creak. Outside. Right in front of the shed door. Instantly, Emily switched off the flashlight, plunging us into darkness. We did not breathe. We didn't blink. We didn't move. Footsteps pressed into the dirt. Slow. Heavy. Deliberate. Right outside the door. Michael. He was standing just inches away. The shed door handle rattled once. Then again. My heart slammed against my ribs. Emily squeezed my arm with all her might, wordlessly begging me not to utter a single word. The door rattled harder. Michael muttered something too low to hear, too close. Then, silence. A long, endless silence, followed by a single phrase spoken just loud enough to reach us. "I know you're out here." Emily's fingernails dug into my skin. Another micro hook of terror tore through me. Because Michael didn't sound confused. He didn't sound suspicious. He sounded certain. "Ready." And then something hit the shed door, a sudden, loud, violent bang that shook the entire structure. She gasped softly, trying not to. I pressed both hands over her mouth before another sound escaped. Michael banged again, harder. The metal luck clinked and the hinges rattled. Another bang, and another one, and then silence. Dead, terrifying silence. Neither of us moved. Neither of us breathed. Until Michael's voice filtered through the breaks in the wood. Calm. Cold. "I'll wait." My blood froze, because the way he said it, Michael wasn't searching anymore. He wasn't confused anymore. He was patient, confident he was. He was hunting, and he knew exactly who he was hunting for. I woke before the sun, long before Michael or the kids. The house was quiet, though my mind wasn't. I felt like the tension of yesterday had been carried into the next day, that it followed me into my sleep and wrapped itself tightly around my chest during the night. I sat up slowly, rubbing the corners of my eyes, trying to shake off the heaviness clinging to me. The words from my sister replayed in my mind, over and over again. You would think that with distance it would lessen the sting, yet somehow it sharpened it. Years apart hadn't softened her. If anything, she had become even more precise at knowing exactly how to hurt me. It was weird how someone could be so far away and push the same old buttons like she had memorized the blueprint of my heart. I walked downstairs and made coffee, but the mug sat untouched in my hands until it went cold. When Michael finally came down and saw me, he paused, like he recognized something in my posture. "You didn't sleep much," he said softly. "Barely," I admitted. He pulled out the chair beside me and placed a hand on my back. "We don't have to figure anything out today, not about your mother or the rest of them. Just breathe." "I thought I was past all this," I whispered. "I thought I was finally free." Michael shook his head. "Healing isn't a straight line, Sarah." He was right. The past didn't just go away because you walked out of its house. Sometimes it crawled out behind you. "I'm going for a walk," I said after a moment. "Do you want company?" "No," I said softly. "I need a little space." Outside, the morning air was cool and smelled of damp earth. Mist hung low over the grass, curling around my ankles as I made my way to the pond behind our property. The world seemed quiet enough that I could hear myself think, and what I heard wasn't pretty. I wasn't just afraid of my family reaching back. I was afraid that deep down, some part of me still wanted them. Not their cruelty or expectations, not the way they twisted love into obligation, but the version of them that I had always hoped they'd become. A mother who could protect me, a sister who could care about my happiness, a family that wasn't built like a trap. The loss wasn't them. It was the dream. I sat down on the bench by the water and let myself cry. Quietly, the kind of tears that felt old, like they belonged to a girl who had never been held when she needed it most. I didn't even hear the footsteps until they were close. "Mom?" I turned to find Daniel standing a few feet away, shoving his hands into the pockets of his hoodie. "Your dad said you were gone," he said. "I wanted to check on you." I blinked at him, embarrassed and touched all at once. "You should be asleep." He shrugged. "Couldn't. Also, you cry louder than you think." I let out a breathy laugh. "Oh, good. I was hoping someone would witness my breakdown." He sat beside me, kicking at a pebble near his shoe. "I heard a little of what you and Dad talked about last night." "I didn't want you to hear that," I said. "It's fine, but I've been thinking." He took a breath, trying to sound normal, but failing a little. "People say family comes first, but maybe the people who actually treat you like they care, maybe those are the ones who should come first." I turned around fully toward him. "That means us," he said quietly. "Me, Emma, Dad, not them." My heart tightened. "Daniel, you shouldn't have to think about things like this." "Maybe not," he said, "but I don't want you getting hurt by people who don't deserve you." I leaned my head against his shoulder, and he stayed still, letting me. It meant more than he knew. Finally, as we walked back towards the house, the sun was rising through the trees, and light was spreading out across the trail. It was a small mercy, a reminder that even on the hard mornings, something warm waited for me at home. Later, after breakfast and a few hours of pretending I was fine, I sat with Michael on the porch while the kids played inside. "I think," I started, watching the wind move through the branches, "I know what I need to do." Michael's expression softened. "Tell me." "I need to cut them off, for real this time, completely." The words felt heavy, yet strangely relieving. No more wavering, no more guilt. He nodded slowly. "Then we'll make that decision together." I exhaled, thinking I would feel lighter, but instead, something inside of me twisted. A small, sharp fear that whispered maybe cutting ties wasn't the end, not with people like my mother, who didn't let go easily, who didn't release control without a fight. As if the universe wanted to confirm my fear, my phone vibrated from inside the house. I walked back in and picked it up, and my hands froze. 3 missed calls from an unknown number, and 1 voicemail. I pressed play. "Sarah, it's your mother. Call me back. Something has happened. It's important." I went still. She sounded different, shaken, out of breath, afraid. Michael stepped behind me. "What's wrong?" I swallowed hard. "It's my mother. Something's happened." He looked at me with concern, but at that moment, the storm was inside. Because if my mother was scared, then whatever was coming wasn't small. And the thought of the next choice I made, pulling me back into a world I had fought like hell to escape, made my stomach turn. The kind of twist that didn't just change a story, it changed my life. I didn't sleep that night, not even for a moment. My mind kept playing the same loop over and over. Michael sitting on that bed, pretending to be weak, pretending to care, pretending to be a husband, while in reality, the threads of truth about him unraveled faster than I could hold on to it. I kept thinking about Agent Collins' warning. That man is not who you think he is. When he said that, it sounded melodramatic, perhaps even an overstatement. He was right. The biggest mistake of my life wasn't marrying Michael. No, it was trusting him, loving him, allowing him to make me feel guilty over things he was secretly causing. I finally forced myself to move when morning came. I needed answers, real ones, not guesses, not theories, proof. I decided to start with something simple, easier to deal with. Michael's things. The man was sloppy. He hid lies the way a child hides candy, behind obvious places, thinking no one would check. So, while he slept upstairs, snoring like nothing in the world was wrong, I began going through the drawers in his home office. In the top drawer was the usual junk: pens, receipts, scraps of paper. The second drawer contained nothing more than a batch of envelopes, unused. The third drawer, however? My chest tightened the instant I pulled it open. There were folders, labeled, organized, too organized for a man who couldn't keep track of his own socks. The first folder bore no identification other than a date: 2 years ago. Inside it, I found statements, bank statements, but not ours. They were related to an account in a completely different name altogether. A man named Edward Hale. My hands started shaking as I flipped through the pages. The balance wasn't small, tens of thousands of dollars. Deposits made irregularly, but consistently over the last few years. Then I saw something that made my heart drop into my stomach. One of the deposits coincided with the exact week Michael claimed he fell and injured his back. He didn't fall. He was paid. And in that instant, it dawned on me. And suddenly, the air was too thin to breathe. Because now the question wasn't whether he had lied, it was why. I kept flipping, desperate, numb, angry. Then another folder caught my eye. This one wasn't labeled with a date. It had a name: the Redwood Facility. I had no idea what that was: a business, a hospital, a storage unit. But inside the folder, I found a list of names. Dozens, maybe more. Every name had a date next to it, and a check mark. A cold shiver crawled up my spine. What kind of list was this? Another micro-hook hanging over me. If the truth was what I thought it was, I wasn't just married to a liar. I was married to something much, much darker. Before I could dig deeper, I heard footsteps upstairs. Heavy, slow. Michael had woken up. I jammed the folders back, shut the drawer noiselessly, and rushed to the kitchen in time to hear him call down. "Danny, you home?" His voice sounded sweet, gentle, concerned. It almost made me sick. "Yes," I said, faking preoccupation with the coffee. "Just started breakfast." He appeared in the doorway, leaning dramatically on the cane. But after everything I'd learned, the performance looked ridiculous, fake, like a cheap imitation of a man he'd never been. Rough night, he groaned. Back's killing me. I stirred the coffee slowly. Oh, I thought you slept well. He blinked, then blinked again. He knew something was amiss. He could feel it. The way he watched me, careful, calculating, made the kitchen seem smaller, like the walls were edging closer. But he didn't confront me. Instead, he forced a smile. Well, I'm starving. What's for breakfast? I smiled back. Freedom, I whispered inside my head. I said out loud, eggs. We sat opposite each other at the table, eating like strangers forced into the same room. Every piece of food that went into my mouth felt like biting down on a secret, a dangerous one. But then Michael did something he hadn't done in months. He reached across the table and touched my hand. It felt like touching a cold statue. You okay, Danny? He asked softly. You seem distant. I looked into his eyes, searching for the man I knew, the one who kissed my forehead in the mornings, the one I thought would never hurt me. I didn't find him. I found nothing but emptiness instead, like someone had turned off the lights behind his eyes. I'm fine, I lied. He held my hand a second longer before letting go, yet there was suspicion in the way he watched me clean up. And the worst part was, I knew he wasn't just suspicious. He had planned, plotting. I could feel it. Later that afternoon, after he supposedly went to rest his back, I slipped into the backyard and called Agent Collins. The second he picked up, I told him everything. The secret bank account, the name Edward Hale, the Redwood facility, the list of names. There was a pause on the other end, long, heavy. Then Collins said something that made my knees nearly buckle. Sarah, if your husband is involved with Redwood, you need to understand something. My breath caught. Understand what? The people tied to Redwood don't just commit fraud. They erase people. Erased people. My stomach twisted violently. What does that mean? I whispered. It means Redwood is a shell operation used to move people off the grid. New identities, new locations, new lives. Sometimes for protection, sometimes for reasons less legal. I said nothing. I couldn't. And if your husband has a folder full of names and check marks, Collins continued, then he isn't a victim of Redwood. What is he then? I asked, though I was afraid to hear the answer. Collins didn't mince words. He's working for them. I grabbed the edge of the patio table to keep from falling. Michael, my husband, working for something illegal, dangerous, possibly criminal on a level I didn't even understand. Agent Collins, I whispered, what exactly do these people do? He hesitated. Some relocate people who want to disappear. Some help people disappear who don't want to. My blood ran cold. Michael wasn't just lying. He was present. And the worst part? I didn't know which side of that line he was on, or which side he put me on. Before Collins could say anything more, the sliding glass door behind me opened. The hairs on the back of my neck shot upright. Michael's voice drifted out, calm and smooth. Who are you talking to, sweetheart? My heart almost stopped. I forced my voice steady. Just Tina from work. He narrowed his eyes, looking at me in a way that made me feel skinned open. Then he smiled. That same, gentle, practiced smile. Well, he said quietly, come inside when you're done. We need to talk. Microhook. And the way he said, we need to talk, wasn't a request. It was a warning. The moment he was inside, I whispered into the phone, what do I do? Collins replied straight away, you need to get out of that house, today. I swallowed hard and stared at the doorway that Michael had disappeared into. Agent Collins, I breathed, I think he already knows. And deep in my gut, I knew I was right, because something had shifted in the air. Michael wasn't acting anymore. He was getting ready. And whatever he was preparing for, it involved me. I stepped back into the house like I was walking into a lion's den. Every instinct in my body screamed at me, run, leave, escape. But leaving too quickly would raise his suspicions. More than they already were. I had to move carefully, quietly. One wrong move and, honestly, I didn't even know what this man was capable of anymore. Michael sat in the living room on the couch, cane laid across his lap like some sort of king who was awaiting someone to kneel before him. His smile was placid, too placid. "Come," he said. My throat tightened, but I made myself sit in the armchair across from him, a safe distance, a barrier. The first thing his eyes flicked to was my hands, checking if I was holding anything, then to my face, searching for cracks, lies, fear. He wasn't looking at me like a husband looks at a wife. He was looking at me like a threat. "Sarah," he started slowly, "we haven't really talked lately. You've been distant." My voice remained steady. "Long shifts, I'm tired." He didn't believe me. I could see it in the tiny twitch at the corner of his jaw. "I know when you're lying," he said softly. A chill crawled up my spine. Then he leaned forward. Too close. Too comfortable. "You didn't go to the school yesterday," he whispered. "You left the house for almost 2 hours." My breath caught. He knew. "No one's keeping tabs on you, sweetheart," he said with a grin. "I just worry about you when you wander off alone." His words were sweet. His tone wasn't. His tone was a threat wrapped in honey. I swallowed. "I needed fresh air." "You could have told me." "I didn't want to wake you." Michael's fingers tapped the cane, slow, rhythmic, like a countdown. "I think," he said finally, "we've reached a point where honesty is important." My stomach dropped. Important for whom? Microhook. In that moment, I realized something terrifying. Michael wasn't asking questions. He was measuring me, calculating his next move based on my answers. He stood slowly to his feet, not limping, not groaning, not holding his back, fully upright. Perfect posture. He walked up to me, stopping inches away. "You seem scared," he whispered. I forced a laugh, the nervous kind. "I'm not scared of you." He leaned his head sideways. "Good, because I'd never hurt you." The irony almost made me laugh. Almost. He reached down, placed a hand on my shoulder, and squeezed a little too hard. "I need you to trust me, Sarah." I nodded. Then he did something strange, something I still don't fully understand. He leaned down and kissed the top of my head, slowly, gently, like he was saying goodbye. Then he let go of his shoulder, stepped back, and said, "I will take a shower. When I am back, we can talk further." And with that, he walked upstairs, again, perfectly fine, no limp, no cane, leaving me alone in the living room with the sound of my heartbeat thundering through my chest. The moment he disappeared around the corner, I sprang from my chair and reached for my phone. I sent a frantic text to Agent Collins. "He knows. What do I do?" I prayed he would answer right away. A moment later, buzz. "Do not confront him. The moment he gets into the shower, leave the house. Head to the meeting point. I'm sending the address now." My hands trembled as I typed. "He might come down fast." And Collins replied, "Then you have to hurry. Do not let him catch you leaving." I jammed the phone in my pocket and listened. Water turned on upstairs. This was it. This was my window. I grabbed my coat, my purse, and the car keys, then stopped. My breath caught in my throat. The extra phone. The folders. The names. If I left now, I'd be safe. But those things, proof, they mattered. They were everything. Without them, Michael could spin any story he wanted. He could disappear again, start fresh, erase more people. But if I took that evidence, he could never hide again. The shower continued running upstairs. I had seconds to decide. I ran to the office, pulled open the drawer, grabbed the folders, and stuffed them under my shirt. Then I ran toward the garage. As I unlocked my car, my hand shook violently. I opened the door quietly, slipped inside, started the engine. Then, the bathroom water turned off. No, no, no. I backed out of the driveway so fast the tires screeched. The moment I hit the street, I glanced at the rearview mirror. A figure stood in the upstairs window. Michael, watching, still as a statue. I couldn't breathe. I hit the gas harder and drove in the direction of the address Colin sent me. My mind was racing so fast, I barely remembered the streets I took. I pulled into a small, quiet parking lot behind an abandoned diner. There was no one there, just empty asphalt and silence. Then, buzz. Another text, but not from Collins. It was from an unknown number. "Where are you going, Sarah?" My blood froze. My stomach twisted. He had another number, another phone. Of course he did. I stared, horrified at the screen. "Come home. Now. We need to finish our conversation." Instantly, my eyes welled up with tears. My chest tightened. Another message came in. "You've taken something of mine. Return it, or you'll regret it." I quickly covered my mouth to block the sob that tried to escape. And then, a car pulled into the lot. Black, unmarked, slow. For a moment, I thought it was Collins. But the vehicle was too big, too dark, too threatening. My throat closed. I relocked the doors, even though they were already locked. The car came to a stop 3 spaces away from mine. The engine remained on. No one got out. No one rolled down a window. They were just watching me. I suddenly realized something horrifying. This wasn't a coincidence. They came for me. And if they were here, then Michael wasn't working alone. My fingers were trembling as I reached for my phone and typed to Collins, "Someone's here, not you. Help." No response. "No, please." The driver's door of the black car opened. A man stepped out, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a dark coat and gloves. He began walking toward my car, slowly, purposefully. My heartbeat reached a breaking point. I hit the horn, once, hard, a warning, a plea. The man didn't flinch. He continued walking, 10 feet away, 8, 6. I fumbled with the gear shift, trying to back out, but my hands were slick with sweat, shaking so badly I could hardly hold on to it. The man reached my window. He leaned down, and then a voice shouted from behind him, "FBI, step away from the vehicle." It was Collins. Lastly, the man straightened slowly, looked at Collins, and raised both hands. But the look he gave me, cold, knowing, made my blood feel like ice. Collins rushed to my door, banging on the window. "Sarah, open it, now!" I unlocked it with shaking fingers, and he pulled it open. "Are you hurt?" he yelled. I shook my head violently. He helped me out by guiding me behind his car. The black sedan peeled away before Collins could do anything to stop it, screeching out of the lot and disappearing down the road like a ghost. I clung to Collins' arm, hardly able to speak. "They were watching me," I whispered. He nodded grimly. "I know. And Sarah, it means Michael's part in this is bigger than we thought." I swallowed, choking on fear. "Agent Collins," I whispered, "what do they want from me?" He looked at me, really looked at me, and his answer made my knees almost buckle. "They don't want something from you." He paused. "They want you gone." Sarah stared at the message on her phone. Her fingers were trembling like they no longer belonged to her. For a moment, the letters blurred, not because they were hard to read, but because her brain refused to take them in. The message was short, just one line, but it changed everything. "I think it's time we talk. I know what you did." Her mind spun so fast it made her dizzy. Who sent this? What did they know? How much had they seen? She typed a reply 3 times, deleting it each time. Her chest felt tight, too tight, like her ribs were shrinking around her lungs. This couldn't be happening now, not when everything was already collapsing. The room around her was smaller, darker. She flipped the phone over, face down on the table, as if that could somehow erase what she'd just read. But her heart kept pounding, like the message was chasing her, demanding to be acknowledged. For a moment, she actually wondered if she could just disappear, walk out the door, drive until the map became meaningless. But no, running would make her look guilty. She pulled the phone back toward her with 2 fingers, like it was a dangerous animal. She tapped on the name. Unknown. No number, no history, nothing that gave her a clue. A cold wave crawled up her spine. Whoever this was, they were hiding on purpose. She took a shaky breath. She needed to think straight. What had she done? What could someone possibly know? In her mind, all the recent chaos replayed like a glitching movie. The lies, the secrets, the mistakes she'd buried so deep she hoped even she would forget them. And then she realized something terrifying. It wasn't just one thing that she had to worry about. There were several. Her stomach twisted. A small inner voice whispered to her, "What if this message isn't about what you think? What if it's about something else, something even worse?" That thought alone made her knees feel weak. She took her jacket and stepped outside. The night was crisp, almost too cold for that time of fall. Her breath showed in a misty cloud in front of her as she exhaled, like her panic was trying to get out of her in the form of fog. She walked down her porch steps and scanned the street. Nothing. There were just quiet houses, dark windows, and one flickering street lamp, which made everything seem haunted. She pulled out her phone again and reread the message. It was as if the words were mocking her. She considered calling the police, but what would she say? "Hi, someone texted me something vague and now I'm scared." They'd brush her off, or worse, they'd come ask questions she wasn't ready to answer. She needed help, real assistance. She almost dialed her sister's number, but stopped herself. Her sister would ask too many questions. Her sister always had a way of looking directly into her soul, as if she could see everything Sarah tried to hide. Not an option. But there was one person she could call, not because he was the safest choice, but because he was the only one who might understand. She scrolled through her contacts until she found his name, Logan. For a moment, her thumb hovered over the call button. They hadn't spoken in months, not since everything blew up between them. But if there was ever a time to swallow her pride, this was it. She pressed call. It rang twice. Then a familiar voice responded, rough and with caution. "Sarah?" She closed her eyes. Hearing him say her name shook something loose inside of her. Fear, relief, regret, she wasn't sure which. "Logan, I need to talk to you," she whispered. He didn't say anything right away. She could hear him on the other end, breathing, measuring her tone, calculating what this meant. She knew him too well. "Is everything okay?" he finally asked. "No," she said softly. "It's really not." Another pause. Then, "Where are you?" "Home. I'll be there in 10 minutes." She laid the phone back down. 10 minutes. That could be too long or not long enough. Her mind kept drifting back to the message. The more she thought about it, the worse it felt. It wasn't a threat merely, and it wasn't random. Whoever had sent it wanted her attention, wanted her scared, wanted her off balance. A sudden rustling sound came from the far end of her yard. She snapped her head toward it, her breath catching in her throat. For a moment, she saw a faint shape, human-shaped, standing behind the line of trees. She blinked, and the shape vanished. Her heart slammed inside her chest. She took a step backward toward the house. Her pulse roared in her ears. She clutched her phone so tightly it hurt. Maybe it was just her imagination, or maybe someone really was watching. A micro-hook moment slipped into her thoughts. If there was someone out there, why didn't he come closer? Why didn't he speak? What was he waiting for? The minutes ticked by agonizingly until finally headlights appeared at the end of her street. Logan's car pulled into her driveway, and she exhaled for what felt like the first time in an hour. He stepped out of his car wearing a dark jacket, his expression tight and unreadable. He walked toward her, stopping only a foot away. "Tell me what's going on." She handed him the phone. He read the message, his jaw tightened. "When did this come?" 10 minutes before I called you." "Has anything else happened? Anyone come by? Anyone contacted you?" She hesitated. "I thought I saw someone in the trees." "What do you mean, thought?" he asked sharply. "I looked, and they were gone." He scanned the yard, his demeanor immediately turning protective. Logan had always been one to take things seriously, especially when she needed him. He held out his hand. "Come inside." She followed him up the steps. The instant they were inside, he locked the door behind them and closed the curtains. It was a bit dramatic, but she didn't argue. The tension in her body evened out just from having someone else take control for a moment. "Sarah, is there something you haven't told me?" he asked carefully. She swallowed hard. "There are a lot of things," she acknowledged, "and I don't know which one this is about." His eyes narrowed. "Start talking." She let her legs finally give out and sank into a chair, staring at the floor as if the answers lay buried amongst the fibers of the carpet. "I think someone knows about the storage unit," she said quietly. Logan froze. "The one with—" "Yes." He swore under his breath. "Sarah, why didn't you get rid of it? We talked about this." "I tried," she said, her voice cracking, "but every time I went there, I couldn't do it." A wave of guilt washed over her. The storage unit wasn't just a secret. It was a mistake, a huge one she had kept forever. Logan rubbed his face. If someone knows about that, this message makes a lot more sense. She looked up, dread sitting heavy in her stomach. "Logan, what do we do?" He met her gaze with a seriousness she had never seen in him. "We don't panic," he said. "We figure out who's threatening you before they decide to do something worse." A chill ran through her. Because for the first time, she realized something that was terrifying. This wasn't just a warning. It was the beginning of a countdown. When everything finally quieted, the sun was well up. The sirens were turned off, the neighbors retreated to their homes, and the officers who took Michael away in cuffs left deep tire tracks in the gravel that would take days to fade. I stood there on the porch, wrapped in a blanket one of the neighbors had draped over my shoulders, watching as the man I once called my husband disappeared in the back of a police cruiser. But I didn't feel like a woman who had won. I felt like someone who had survived something I couldn't fully understand yet, and maybe wouldn't for a long time. When the officers returned to explain the charges, the reality hit me in waves. Fraud, conspiracy, identity theft, a stage disability that was part of a massive payout scheme tied to a bigger investigation. And apparently, Michael wasn't just lying to me, he was lying to a lot of people. One detective pulled me aside and said quietly, "We think he stayed with you because you were the perfect cover, stable, responsible, trusting. You made him look normal." Normal? Isn't that terrifying? I wasted nearly 3 decades believing that through everything I was doing, I was building a life with someone who loved me. Instead, I was unknowingly protecting a man who never even existed. Later that afternoon, after giving my statement for what felt like the 3rd time, I stepped back inside the house. It felt hollow inside, as if Michael had taken the oxygen with him. That chair he always sat in looked wrong without him occupying it. His cane, which he dramatically used for support, lay crooked on the floor where the police had stepped over it. For a moment, I just stared at it. That cane symbolized everything. All the lies, all the manipulations, every moment he made me feel guilty for breathing too loud. I picked it up, walked it outside, and threw it straight into the trash bin. It didn't feel like closure, but it felt like a beginning. The week that followed was a blur of paperwork, calls from lawyers, and endless questions from detectives. Everyone wanted to know what I knew. The truth was simple. Not much, not enough, and definitely not enough to understand how long he had been planning all this. But one thing became clear. Michael wasn't getting out. Not this time. Not with the amount of evidence stacked against him. And for the first time in years, I slept without waking to the sound of fake groans or late-night whispers into a secret phone. I slept without fear of what I didn't understand, without the weight of suspicion tightening around my chest. I woke up to silence. Real silence. The kind that doesn't hide anything. One morning, about 2 weeks after everything happened, I made myself breakfast. 2 eggs, toast, blueberries. I sat by the kitchen window, watching the lights spill across the yard, and I realized something strange. I wasn't lonely. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't even sad. I was free. A freedom I hadn't realized I needed. A few days later, I took a walk through the little park near our street. I passed the bench where Michael used to sit, pretending that his legs were too weak to keep moving. Instead of anger, I felt distance. As if those memories belonged to someone else's life. Maybe they did. And here's the part I didn't expect. Here's the twist I never saw coming. While I was at the park, a woman came up to me. Tall, maybe early 50s in age, business casual in attire. She strode right towards me, as though she had been waiting. "Mrs. Carter?" she asked softly. I nodded slowly. She handed me a card. Department of Financial Crimes, Washington, D.C. "I've been following your husband's case for a long time," she said. "What he did, it wasn't small. You were closer to something far bigger than you realized." My stomach fell. Meaning what? She hesitated, her scrutiny of my face a silent deliberation on whether I could handle the truth. "Let's just say your husband wasn't acting alone, and the people he worked with don't like loose ends." A chill crawled up my spine. "Am I in danger?" I whispered. "Not if you cooperate, not if you stay aware, and not if you rebuild your life far away from anyone tied to him." It felt as though my heart had stopped beating for a moment. All this time, I thought Michael was the storm. Maybe he was only the wind before something bigger. She turned back to me before she walked away. "One more thing," she said. "The burner phone we retrieved, there was one message he never deleted. It was about you." "About me?" She nodded slowly. His last text said, "Keep her out of this, no matter what happens to me." For a moment, I didn't know whether to feel relieved or confused. After all, he still tried to protect me. Why? She didn't explain, just walked off, leaving me with more questions than anything else could. When I finally returned home, I sat on the porch and stared out toward the horizon. The weight of a truth was settling deep inside me. My story wasn't over. Michael might be gone, but his secrets weren't. Later that night, I brewed tea and stepped outside under the stars. The air felt different, lighter, sharper, filled with possibility. I thought about everything I'd survived, and everything I still didn't know. And instead of fear, something surprising stirred inside me. Strength, confidence, curiosity. Maybe the agent was wrong about one thing. Maybe I wasn't just a woman Michael used. Maybe I was the key to unravel everything he tried to hide. And as strange as it sounds, I felt ready. If you stayed with me through my story, thank you, truly. Drop a number 1 in the comments so I know you're still here. If you want more stories like this, stories with truth, with danger, with heartbreak and survival, make sure to like the video and subscribe. Your support means more than you know. And listen closely. This is not the last you have heard from me. Why the next chapter? It's already happening. And trust me, you'll want to be here when it does.